Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the From the Hart podcast. We are pleased that we have two presenting sponsors for the podcast. One is Orange Kiwi Consulting, and the other is Crisp Imaging. Orange Kiwi is a consulting firm that specializes in helping family and closely held businesses navigate significant transitions. To learn more about Orange Kiwi, you can visit orangekiwillc.com. The other partner, a new partner of ours, is Crisp Imaging. Their vision is to be the premier imaging company in the world, providing their customers exceptional quality and service, meeting at technology and uncompromising value. To learn more, go to crispimg.com. I like their mission. It's to serve our customers better than they've ever been served before. My guest today is a gentleman that I've known of for quite some time. We finally sat down face-to-face in person a couple weeks ago out here in Southern California. Jeff Ahola from Ahola Corporation. He's the CEO. Jeff's in Cleveland, Ohio, or thereabouts. I'm in Southern California, so we've never found ourselves in the same geography, at least that we knew of, until 2 weeks ago when Jeff reached out, said he was going to be out here. So I had the privilege of sitting down over coffee with Jeff. And Jeff, it's great to see you. Welcome to the From the Hart podcast. Why don't you just start by telling us a little bit? You're a family-owned business, been around, coming up on 60 years, I believe, as a family business, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about the business, what you do, and then we'll just dive into some questions from there.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Ed, for the invite to your podcast. I've watched many of them so far, and it's a pleasure to be on here with you. And it was also a pleasure to meet you in person. We were just outside of John Wayne Airport, and those are my old stomping grounds back in the day before I joined up with the family business. But, the Ahola Corp has been around since 1967 and pioneering computing services firm that started out as a full service, they called them computer service bureaus back in the day, but it evolved to become a payroll focused human capital management firm. We're national. We have a few international clients that have US based employees, but we're a national processor and we have a love for family business. So I've been studying family business, have lived the family business life where I'm second generation. My daughter's now third generation. And, we've served over 10,000 family businesses over the last nearly 60 years, and headquarters are between Cleveland and Akron, Ohio, and Brecksville. And we've got an office in Columbus, Ohio, and we've got clients throughout the United States. So we're truly a national processor, and with the aspiration to have more even international clients that they want one company to take care of everything from hire to retire here in the United States. That's what we're working on lately.
I like that. It has a nice ring to it, from hire to retire.
Yep.
Very nice. So you are in Ohio, where obviously our nation's history has more. I mean, I'm in California, and so obviously family business, while strong and has a great root here in California on the West Coast, really the origins go to Europe and other parts of the world that have been doing it for centuries. Some of the oldest family businesses go back, obviously more than 1,000 years. Certainly a lot of family businesses in Ohio and east of you go back a couple hundred years. When you think about the state of family business overall, just what comes to mind when you think about longevity or succession? There's statistics you and I have talked about before about, 70% fail from Gen 1 to Gen 2 and 80% and so forth. And I think that's the case with businesses in general. But just when you think about, because you are a family business, you serve primarily family-owned businesses. Can you talk a little bit about your perception of family business in general, where you are and just overall?
That's a great question because I just came back from Helsinki, Finland, and we've got an AI software partner out there in Espoo, Finland. And I joined the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce, but we're also Chamber of Commerce members for the Greater Cleveland Partnership, the City of Columbus, and the City of Brecksville, where we're located. And it's quite amazing to see that companies in Europe, I thought, would have solved most of their estate tax problems. They've solved a few of them, but apparently just in a reading I did just a couple of days ago, they're still struggling with some of the governmental regulations that are stifling these family businesses from estate taxes to other things commonly known as the death tax in the United States. But you're right about, multi-generational businesses in Europe. That's really one of the reasons I wanted to spend some time over there, because, a third, fourth, fifth generation business here in Ohio, although it's stable, it's still not as stable as a 10th, 12th, or 20th generation firm in Europe or the EU. So, Yeah, the state of the state of family business is pretty exciting. I've been involved since the roots of it all. I got to spend time with Dr. Leon Danko, who was the Harvard PhD, Case Western Reserve graduate from Cleveland, Ohio, that is known to have pioneered the entire family business consulting arena. And I got to get to know him because my dad had his book on his bookcase. So I thought, boy, I should check this person out. And that was in 1984. And I've been addicted to following and helping and learning about family business since. So it's been pretty much more than 40 years.
So in your studies from that book and just overall crossing the ocean and going overseas and then working with family businesses around America, have you been able to pinpoint a handful of common denominators that make these businesses successful, especially as you alluded to these fifth, sixth, seventh, 10, 12th generation families, or the second, third, or fourth generation for that matter here in America? Anything in particular pop up?
Well, that's what my new book is about. So I was in San Diego and then Orange County because Henry DeVries from Indie Books is my editor. And the book's working title is Long Live Family Business. The book is all about longevity research, those in America, those centenarian based 100-year-old or older family businesses in the US. But my future podcasts are to interview the business owning family members that have successfully, done succession planning and some other longevity issues, and hear about the real world way that they made that happen, not just the academic, but also the real world. So I'm going to put the two together. And I'm speaking at the Ohio SHRM event. SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Management. I've got 2 1-hour keynote presentations, and my keynote is all about nepotism can be a good word. So
I like the title, Done Right, Nepotism is a Happy Word. I think that's really catchy.
Yes. So that's going to be some of the content of the book that I'm working on as well. But, the longevity research, I've seen a lot of people talking about longevity of human beings, but I thought I don't see a lot of longevity books about family businesses and how they succeeded to keep their businesses alive, because too many good ones, if they had the education or the support or the network, they could keep these businesses going and growing and not sell them to private equity or let them fail. And I think it's such a shame to see that happen. So I'm driven to make that happen for as many family businesses as I can across the country.
I love that. So for those that are watching, and I've done this before, if you're listening, I'll describe what I'm about to do. I'm holding up a baton. And so when you think of a baton, what comes to mind for you? I have a story that I tell about a relay race and so forth and likening it to a family business. But you and I've talked about it a little bit in the past. What comes to mind when you think of a baton when it comes to family business?
I think about the dropping the baton on the handoff. You're in a cross country race that could be devastating, losing just a couple of steps. So it's pretty important that you get skilled and understand all the different options you have for passing the business on to the next generation. I think it's one of the key issues. One of the most important longevity research and it's actually quite seminal and quite old research. It's from Dr. Joe Astrakhan's Diet, Exercise, and Don't Smoke. He did a great job of talking about, what HR practices lend to longevity. And surprisingly, succession planning is not statistically significant in the longevity formula. So although it's an important process, an important HR process, family and non-family employees, the keys are frequent family meetings, having an outside board of advisors or board of directors, and do strategic planning in parallel with the family and the business. Those 3 factors are the most 3 important factors for family business longevity. And that's going to be a big part of the white paper research in my upcoming book, Long Live Family Business. So I really enjoy that those kind of white papers in our family business world, because a lot of people don't have the time to read those kind of white papers, or they're not inclined to do that kind of research. But you gain some of the best insights and best ideas when you dig into these statistically significant research papers that the academics are generating on a dizzying pace in family business compared to 50 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting that I've talked about and had other experts like yourself talk a lot about family businesses and what the successful ones have in common. And you're right. I mean, obviously, almost over communication, to your point, from Joe's research and from what what you're writing about too. just that communication, always being transparent with each other, talking with each other, making sure that, expectations are set and met. I like the phrase I've heard recently and shared recently that, a lot of families and relationships break up because expectations aren't met. And sometimes they're not met just because they're not communicated. And then that planning, certainly having a good plan. And the one that I think is the number one point that you brought up as well is leaning on advisors. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and hire a family business consultant or you have to go pay top money for an expert. And certainly a lot of families do succeed that do that, and some don't succeed that do that.
Yeah.
But be a learner, educate yourself, read books, read articles, read white papers. If not you, have somebody in your organization who does, who then shares it with you, because there is a wealth of knowledge out there outside of your business. Not every business knows how to run every business.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't want to hear, a sibling say, they don't tell me anything. I think that might have been your quote. Nobody tells me anything, and I can
Yeah.
think back to my sister being that way too. It's just like, you know what? Some people are business people and maybe they don't think that they'll want that information. But if you over communicate it, you'll never hear that echoing back at Thanksgiving dinner.
I look at generation two, that's you, right?
Yep.
So generation two is obviously, or at times referred to as the bridge generation. Can you talk about G1 and G3 and your role in bridging between the founders, your family, and then now I know your daughter and others are involved in the business?
Yeah, I know that my father was thinking about this while I was not working in the family business because I could tell from the research and the work that he'd done. But in the end of him retiring or leaving the family business, he was quick to cut, which sometimes that's a great move. Sometimes it can be disastrous, but if it's somewhat planned out, a quick cut off is the best. He moved from Cleveland out west, and he kind of like put us up to either, fish or die. So we
Yeah.
learned how to fish, and we did some great things. So he did that quick cut succession plan. Um, in our G2, we were very clear to do what's called pruning the family tree. If we had, somebody in the cousins generation that, wanted to be in the family business, we'd give them a shot. But if they didn't have their heart in it, you could tell that they were just there to try to maybe impress the siblings that own the business, that kind of stuff. So if someone came in and we would have family employment policy guidelines in writing, which to me, we distribute that stuff gratis to people so that they can do something for themselves. I've created a tool, it's an ebook that creates a family employment policy for a small, middle market, and large family business, because they can be all different, but they're really baby steps to having some good governance, is the way I look at it. And since it's in the HR space where we're most comfortable, I thought it would be a great spot for us to, contribute that to our communities that we work in, and help people kind of get that baby step first started, because sometimes that's all they need is a little bit of help. So we've worked on that type of stuff, but pruning the family tree, and now we're in the third generation where my daughter is the only one of the G3 involved in the business today, and two of my siblings are retired but still owners. So it's a 4-person sibling team that has built the business up and still continues to own the business.
Back to the handbook conversation for a moment. What would you say are some key factors that need to be involved, whether it's a small business, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees, medium size, or one of these massive ones as you talk about, and some that you serve? Are there key components that should exist in every handbook? Not to get all black and white here for everybody, but certainly my goal in this conversation is to educate those that are watching and listening on family business issues. And also for those of you who are not running a family business, a lot of the things we talk about are applicable to you and your company as well. And then obviously my hope for Jeff is that he can promote what he's doing and talk about what lights his fire. And we're going to get into some soft skill things here in a minute, but just staying on the policies for a second, what types of policies or procedures do you want to make sure that are included in all handbooks, regardless of the company size?
Yeah, the basic ones, when it comes to, a lot of family businesses will allow their employees to become multi-generational employers, meaning that, they may not own the business, but they want their daughter or nephew or niece to come in. There's nothing wrong with that, but there should be, just a little bit of written documents is a good idea. You don't have to go overboard, but creating a family employment policy, or maybe even a somewhat of a nepotism policy in the employee handbook is a good idea. But what's interesting about, the world of handbooks, they are all driven by the number of employees you have. So the Chief Justice Scalia coined the term the payroll method of counting your employees. And that's what's different for family businesses. If you're a family business shareholder and an employee, you might not be counted as an employee because you might be construed to be a statutory employee as opposed to a common law employee. So there's some legal nuances that kind of muddy the water for compliance. And we've got some tools that we've developed that help employers do those kind of things. Very cutting edge. No one's done it in our industry before, but those types of things are very, very important to get dialed in and stay in compliance. The HR people, love to create handbooks and documents. That's kind of like what they're known for. But family employment and related party employment is a very dicey, complicated thing. There are related party rules, there's family attribution rules, there's family aggregation rules, all embedded in the Department of Labor and the IRS. So these are the things that we try to communicate and help people out understand, where do they stand when it comes to compliance. And it truly is a brand new solution. We call it compliance as a service. So it's CAAS, kind of like software as a service.
Mhm.
Ours is compliance as a service. And it's a tool that we're building out right now specifically for, we call them family influenced businesses. You may not think of yourself as a family business, but if there's an influence in it, meaning that you have an intention to pass it on, or you're following your grandfather or your father's footsteps, or grandmother or mother's footsteps, we call that a family influenced enterprise. It's a weird family business definition is still a real dicey thing, as you know, Ed,
Yeah.
you're running the Cal State Fullerton Family Business Center. I'm sure you're fully aware of some of the complexities that it creates, but people don't realize family business is very, very complex, and our legislators have done a good job of making it more complex. So
Yeah. Let's muddy the water a little bit more, right?
exactly. So
What do you say when somebody asks you, how do you define a family business? Well, I'm curious what Jeff says on that.
what we've done is we follow the friends of ours, the Family Business Consulting Group. It's a lot simpler than the FPEC scale of familyness, so there's a lot of ways to be out there to find it. But we just think it's, when there's two or more family members involved in a family company, and there's intent to perpetuate it and pass it on. It may not be successful at doing that, but there's an intent there that they'd like to keep that legacy alive. And there's a couple other unique things, but I can't recall the other ones.
Yeah.
But those two are the two main ones. Family members. I've seen as high as 45 family members working together.
Sure,
So,
me too. I got a couple out here that I know very, very well, that there's 50 plus cousins and relatives working in management or above in the business. One of those two definitions you gave are spot on, because I follow the Family Business Consulting Group definition as well. And then a third that I use a lot is, do you think of yourself as a family business? Because if you
point.
do, there's a reason why. And I hate to use this example over and over and over. I might have shared it with you, and I know I've shared it on the podcast many times. In-N-Out Burger out here and headquartered in California for now, moving to Tennessee, but headquartered here. Founded by family, passed along in the family. Currently, Lindsay Snyder is the sole owner of the business, 96%, I believe, if I know the numbers right. So if you were to take it as a snapshot, it's not. But because she thinks of it as a family business, because she has kids who likely will transition from dad, uncles, grandparents. So that's kind of the epitome of definition number 3. Do we think of ourselves as a family business?
Yep.
And you face a lot of different challenges being in a family business, obviously, as well. What would be, without opening up the kimono too much, what types of challenges have you either seen in the family business before you were there, or have experienced yourself, or anticipate as you transition to your daughter or the next gen?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because my sister was Ahola is a Finnish name. It's a very Finnish term in Finland, but a lot of the Finns are very shy people. And my sister Maria is one of those, and she got fired and rehired by my dad. I think she said 5 times because my dad had to be at a meeting at the IRS, and there was nobody there that could answer the phone. And so he asked my sister to answer the telephone. And this is before I was there. And she said, no, I'm too shy. I don't want to answer the phone. So my dad fired her. And, the next day he calls her up and rehires her and asks her to answer the phone again. And she says, no, I want to answer the phone. She did this 4 times in a row. And then finally she got the courage to answer the phone. And she turned out to be so good on the phone. It was amazing, to be so shy and introverted that she didn't want to talk to anybody. But then as she matured and got better as a payroll expert, she was just amazing on the telephone. But that was one example there of, where family and business collide.
Sure.
It's like having a hostile workplace, if siblings are arguing with each other, because the non-family employees don't realize that they care for each other, but they're just maybe they're a little hot-headed personalities kind of thing. But
Yeah, you fire an employee who's not family, and that ship probably sailed. They've probably moved on. You're probably not bringing them back. But family, you're going to still see them at the dinner table on Sunday night.
yeah, so I hope that answers your question, right? But
No, absolutely. So, what was your first job before the family business? I mean, go back as far back as you want to go. And what did that job teach you about what's helped you throughout your career?
I was 12 years old when my parents started the family business. My mom sat us down in a little family meeting and said, guys, if you want some spending money, you have to go out and get creative and find something to do to earn money. So I went out and I got a plain dealer route for I got a Lorraine Journal route, which is an afternoon newspaper. And my brother got a plain dealer route, which is a morning newspaper. And we used to cover for each other. We had sports to go to, baseball. We both were big baseball players. We'd cover each other's morning or even afternoon route. But we had so much money in our hands. My mom used to come by and borrow money, to make ends meet, because she was feeding a family of 6 and a dog and a cat on $25 a week back in, let's see, that would have been 1967 when they started the business. And yeah, that was my first job. And then what else did I do? I shoveled driveways and I mowed lawns for my customers too. So when the weather got bad, I'd shovel their driveway for a fee. And if the summer was nice, I'd mow their lawn. So that's what I
Wow.
did, and taught me how to, collect money from people. I remember knocking the door one time and people would open the curtain up. I was collecting for the newspaper out. They'd run and go hide because they didn't have any money.
Yeah, not here, not home.
I
Yep.
could see them, so I learned how to collect money, and I enjoyed the repeating recurring revenue stream, which is similar to our payroll business. That's, it's like you have to have your payroll done every week or two or twice a month, and it just repeats and recurs. So I learned a lot about my paper route for the business.
Nice. I like that a lot. Yeah, I did a paper route as a kid as well for a little while, and yeah, and just and customer service was so important. I mean,
Customer service.
some customers wanted the paper on their porch, some were finding the driveway, some wanted it hand delivered, some wanted in their mailbox. I mean,
Ed, I got a great customer service story. So we got a phone call. I would put this person's newspaper in the storm door, and I'd shut the storm door. It'd latch, and they call up and go say, "Oh, our storm door opened up and the paper blew away." And my mom said, "You go down to Lawson's." Lawson's was a little milk convenience store. You go down to, because all my papers were delivered. They're all accounted for. You go down to Lawson's. You go buy them a newspaper and you deliver it to them and bring it over to them. And she was so right. I mean, that was the kind of, customer service ethos that she created for us. But she was right. It was the right thing to do, But, I was tired. I was a little grumpy about having to get my bicycle and go down and buy a newspaper and bring it over to them. But in the long run, it was the right thing to do. So
yeah, and you learned a lot. You learned that ethic. What was your first role within the family business?
On Sundays after church, we would have to clean the men's and women's bathrooms. We'd empty the key punch. You know what a hanging chad is? Remember that?
Oh yeah, remember that term? Yep.
Key punch?
Yeah.
The boxes where the women would key punch the data, they'd get filled up, and I'd have to empty those out, as part of we got our suits on from church, but that was our job, was to help out the family business. And that was our whole family's job Sunday after church. So what we did.
I love that. So you moved up. You started out literally at the bottom. You didn't enter. Does your family business? It sounds like your parents had, and you probably do as well for your kids, have a policy in place. Back to the HR and family business policies of go get a job somewhere else, go work, learn how to supervise, learn how to move up the ladder, and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah. But we try to live what we profess. We try to use the technology. We're going to market to others. Those are the things that we do, I think, as good or better than any. A lot of people don't know there's a lot of payroll options out there today, but Ahola Corp is the third oldest automated computerized payroll company in the country.
Hmm.
And Cleveland's our headquarters, and we're going to issue our 50 millionth perfect payday sometime in the next quarter. So it's pretty amazing
Wow.
story, and I love to tell it.
Yeah, I love that. The perfect payday. Talk about that. Obviously, I know what it means, but I mean that where did the
Yeah,
term come from
it's
and that promise.
it's funny in Ohio. There are a lot of different taxes in Ohio, although California is starting to get pretty close. But we've got local taxes, where you work tax, where you live tax. We've got city, state withholding taxes, obviously federal, state, and federal FUTA and state unemployment. But a perfect payday is all what we thought that these small businesses that we're helping out, one of the only things they really do is promise to their employees that they'll pay them accurately and on time every single payday. And we took that promise to heart. So we would guarantee to our clients that we will do whatever in our power to make sure that if we mess up, we fess up and fix it. It's amazing when you think about it with all the things that can go wrong. We operate on a highly accurate model that is what people expect. That's what I would expect. That's what you would expect as an owner to do it correctly. You don't want to miss over or underpay them. You don't want to do it tax wise wrong. So that's what we like to choose, is show them that we're here to have a perfect payday, and we'll help them out whatever way we can.
That's excellent. I appreciate that commitment. It's great when a company can make the promise and deliver on the promise. It certainly gives the customers some peace of mind. Can you talk a little bit about early? You've alluded to your mom. You've alluded to others, early mentors or leaders that you've admired and tried to emulate.
Yeah, my first mentor was Peter B. Lewis. He was the second generation, um, second oldest son of a four-person sibling team that started Progressive Insurance in California, and started Progressive Insurance in Cleveland, Ohio, as a matter of fact. But I opened up the state of California for Progressive, and no, I did not date Flo, but I'm pretty proud of working for Progressive and coming around Southern California, telling people about this little insurance company in Cleveland that could do a great job with your automobile and motorcycle insurance and that kind of stuff. So he was my big mentor. He built this. There was 200 employees when I started. Right now, there's 38,000 employees at Progressive. It was really cool to be there in the early days. And I actually have had dreams about creating a company like Progressive in Cleveland to grow as fast as they have. And, we're not as big as they were when I started at 200 employees, but we're approaching nearly 100 employees. So we're getting there. And I think in the next 3 years, we'll probably double it to 200 employees before you know it. So
I love that. So from these mentors and these leaders that you've learned from, when you go through a challenge, I'm not going to say have you been, because we've all been through or going through challenges at one point or another. What have your experiences with previously, go back to your mom or go back to Peter or other mentors, when you're going through a tough time, how do you hearken back to lessons that you've learned to help you get through those challenges?
From a mentor perspective, I can't think of anything offhand. But the one thing that we did at Progressive, I was involved in IT there. When we were changing over to a new platform that we had developed in-house, we would promise to make sure when business opened up at 8 o'clock the next morning, we'd be up and running. So, we had to spend nights sleeping on the couches in the lobby to make sure we were babysitting the data or the software we were implementing to make sure it was running. And we did that. And by God, come Monday morning or the next day at 8 a.m., it was up and running, and we made sure that happened. So, I mean, just overcoming typical bugs, when you have software and that kind of thing. We just, our word, we had to be impeccable with our word. If we said we're going to get it done, we'd stay through the night to make sure we got it done the best we could.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest example I can remember.
What motivates you to do a good job, to be that excellent provider for your clients? Obviously, I'm sort of answering the question with the question, but when you think about just what motivates you and drives you, what comes to mind?
I think I love family business because I learned from Progressive. Progressive started out as a non-standard auto insurance company, and to get Peter B. Lewis, my mentor, he wasn't your typical businessman. He was a philosophy major, and his roommate at Yale was the author of the book called Deadly at Any Speed. You remember that book?
I
Deadly at
don't
Any
actually.
Speed? It was the book about the automobile that had the engine in the back, not in the front. So the car would collide and people would die. So
Hmm.
Ralph Nader kind of pioneered that whole process of getting this automobile off the market. But a philosophy major really teaches people how human beings remember things. And he created this non-standard auto, or specialty auto company that until it got across the country and gained momentum, then it opened up to become more of a standard automobile insurance company. So people don't know that about Progressive. They would focus on, high risk people like Clint Eastwood, the movie stars were
Okay.
considered high risk. So that's kind of what I was involved with in California was insuring, celebrities and, high limit, high deductible, high limit kind of insurance. But those tools were pretty cool to just,
Yeah.
be exposed to them, and think about how you can do that in your own strategies going forward. And I've used a few of them along my path along the way.
Yeah. It's interesting how stories is from unrelated work situations or life situations can parallel. I have a
Yeah.
lot of sports stories that are great analogies into business, and a lot of faith related stories that are great into business or great into family and so forth. And so there's definitely ways that we're here to learn, and anything we learn can be applied not only to our own lives, but obviously to others as well. I just started teaching a new class this morning, actually, at a local university. And one of the things I told my students out of the gate is you're here to serve others. And it's a Christian college, so it's easy for them to understand that concept.
Yeah.
But even in the colleges I've taught in the past that are not, they still get that. We're here for other people. As you think about the legacy that you will leave, not just with your daughter or your family or your business, and I know you and I are roughly the same age, and so we do tend to think in terms of legacy probably at this point in our lives. What I hate to ask the question, how do you want to be remembered? That's so cliche, but I guess I will ask it that way. When people talk about you down the road when you're no longer here, what do you hope they will say about you?
There's two things to that question. So the first one, talking about legacy, my job is to keep my parents' dreams and visions alive because even though they're passed on, by continuing to perpetuate that, I keep their visions and dreams alive. So I keep a part of them alive. So to
Mhm.
me, that's what I think a lot of multi-generational family businesses think about. And what was the other question or was tied to that was
Yeah, just the legacy, how
my legacy.
yeah.
So really what I want to do as I've become an author and a presenter is that I want to help these family businesses not only survive, but thrive their business and have a cohesive family both together. Nobody is really searching and serving in that area. So if I can help a family stay cohesive and the business thrive, there's nothing better than, pursuing a passion of what you love. So if you love your work, but you also work with your loved ones, I think that's the most powerful connection you could have in a business world ever is doing what you love to do and doing it with your loved ones. That's why I love family businesses. So I'm hoping that someday, as I build this business to like a progressive like stature, that I have stories of people that come to me heartfelt that they've survived their business or they've perpetuated their business because of something I did or they learned or I helped them get accomplished. That's really what I'm looking to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I add a third component to that too. I mean, do what you love with people you love, serving people you love.
I love
And
that. That
love your customer. Everybody has that, we love our customer. But yeah, if you love what you're doing every day and you get to go to work and I love this work and man, I get to work with people that I just adore. And at the end of the day, my customers are also people. I mean, for me, working in family businesses and every job I've had, whether it was in minor league baseball or whether it was in sales or whatever I did for a living, I always strive to try to find people that I loved that we were serving. When I got in, and it was not always easy. Sometimes that customer is just pounding you, and it's hard to love them when they're being difficult. But you know, if you remove the situation from it and just replace them with the person and who they are. And that's where starting to work in family business full time in the last 15, 20 years for me has been great because, I see what these families are going through, the good and the bad. I see the relationship struggles. I see the succession issues, the conflict that exists, the getting the next generation ready to take over, to helping the existing generation figure out what they're going to do with their days when they retire. I think you and I have talked about, I love that hire to retire phrase you used earlier on. So many current generation leaders in family business just don't know what they're going to do when they retire. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I don't offer the advice unsolicited too often, but when somebody does ask, what am I going to do? It's like, man, you're 30 years old. Get started now. Start thinking, what are things you love doing now? And just get so conditioned to gardening or golfing or traveling or reading a book or things that you can do the rest of your life so that when that retirement time comes, it's still going to be a shock to the system because you're not going to work every day. Howard Behar, the former president of Starbucks, talked about retired depression. The Monday after he retired from Starbucks, he didn't have 50,000 people to send an email to or 100 people coming out of, saying, yes, Howard, when he came out of his office. He didn't have that anymore. So you're going to go through those. So yeah, create opportunities to serve and to figure out what you're going to do with yourself when you retire. So we all have areas where we choose to serve. We get asked as business leaders to serve on nonprofits or to give to different causes or support various local charities. I know you're a very generous man from the research I've done and conversations with you. Where and why do you choose to serve where you do outside of business?
When I came to Cleveland in 1984, Cleveland was in a pretty rough time. People didn't want to move here. People didn't want to live here. And I had left Atlanta. Progressive promoted me from Southern California. And after my Pepperdine MBA, promoted me to Atlanta. I decided to come back to the family business. So in 1984, I joined the downtown chapter of the Cleveland JCs. And I've always been involved in service clubs. And one day, USA Today is talking about where do we put this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that people want to create? What city does that go in? Is that going to Nashville? Is it going to Memphis because of Elvis? Is it going to Cleveland? Is it going to Detroit because of Motown? Well, I, with my buddy Ed Aubé, the two of us started a petition drive for the USA Today magazine newspaper. And we used to run the Friday night parties in the park in downtown Cleveland. And we would hire a band and we'd hire police to protect our money and our beer. And we would pour beer all night. Well, Ed and I started this petition drive. We got over 100,000 signatures for the petition drive to get the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to be located in Cleveland. And we think we had a pretty big impact on this. As a matter of fact, I got invited to the inaugural Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert that was at the old Cleveland Stadium. And my necktie is stapled up on the wall inside the Rock Hall. And
wow.
I just think that those kind of things are special when you take your own personal time to do things like that. And we were volunteers, and the funds that we raised would create shut-in dinners for people that on Thanksgiving couldn't get out of their home or didn't have a family left. So we would go pick them up and bring them to the Cleveland Playhouse and feed them a meal and take them back. They had so much fun. So those kind of service clubs or giving back are awesome things to get involved in. And we don't do enough of that stuff these days. It seems like there's not enough people that like to join service clubs that give back to their community. But it's important to Ahola that we give back to the communities that we're involved in. And it's hard because we're all across the United States, but the markets that we're heavier in, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, we try to do as much as we can to give back to those communities. And I think our client base loves that too. That's kind of like who they are. That's in their DNA as well.
Yeah, people want to do business with people they respect and admire and have similar values. I think you're the first guest I've had in my 140 plus episodes who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Might just be your necktie, but hey, I'm sure your name's on there too. So
it is
pretty cool. I've talked with baseball Hall of Famers and I've talked with speaking Hall of Famers, but you're the first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not member, but you know what I mean? So that's a great story. I love that because, we think of the song Cleveland Rocks from the old Drew Carey show. And people often talk about when you go to Cleveland, you got to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've been to Cleveland and I've yet to be to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that's got to be on my bucket list. love rock and roll. So it's
It's a great
certainly
spot.
a place that
And
I need to
the
go.
city of Cleveland's doing so well, and the whole region's doing very, very well. And it's a great place for young people to buy homes and business people to expand their businesses. We're very grateful for,
Yeah.
having, even though the 70s, Nixon's oil embargo years and the 80s, those were rough years. And my parents had to deal with, their business through to navigate those high seas, and to think that we've, succeeded and beyond and weathered the storm through those tough times is pretty amazing. Anybody that's got a business that's 50 years old or older has had to navigate those stormy weather.
Yeah. So when you complete this sentence, it just came to me. It wasn't on my list of questions, but you've
Okay.
talked about your parents and you've talked about growing the business, especially in tough times in a tough environment and maybe even a tough geography at that point. When I say I'm most proud of my parents because what comes to mind?
I'm most proud of my parents because they gave me and my three siblings an opportunity to share a very valuable asset and work through the potential communication issues, conflict issues, all that stuff. But it's all been for the right reasons. So I'm so proud of them for creating that opportunity for us. Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I really love working for Progressive, but there's nothing like working with your siblings and achieving some really cool things. And we did. We created some really memorable achievements along the path. And it's been 4 decades of working with your siblings is quite accomplishment, as any
Yeah, not many people can do it.
family
I
would
could.
know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Love my siblings. Wouldn't have been able to work with them for
Oh, yep,
4 years, let alone 4 decades.
yep.
All right. So part two of that question, your daughter, Sarah, is it?
Sonya's my
Sonia.
daughter.
Sonia, sorry. What I want most for Sonia is,
What I want most for Sonya is to really love what she does. She's built we have a proactive HR consulting division, and it has just exploded. Where in the past we would primarily provide software as a service solutions, but now there's actually hands-on consulting solutions for the HR space that she's spearheaded that. But now she's second in charge, and I hope that she continues to love it as much as I have. I think she will. It's quite an amazing industry and quite an amazing company, and I hope she gets to gain the full benefit of building that along the path. And it's she's done a great job to date to get started, so it's very cool.
awesome. Love that. Love that a lot. So, how do people reach you? They want to learn more about your writing, about what you're developing within Ahola, about the work that you do, anything.
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me, but I still read emails, and my email is jb@ahola.com, OLA.com. And my mobile number is on there as well. But yeah, they can reach out to me. LinkedIn would be the best. And yeah, I'd love to get feedback from anybody that's taking the time to listen to Ed's podcast here. I would love to learn more about what challenges you might be dealing with, and share you some. We probably got the same kind of scars, so we could share looking at scars and talk about what you're proud of, and maybe what you made a mistake on. It's just that's part of life.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned in serving family businesses over the last couple of decades is how much family businesses like to hear other family business stories. I don't know if it's the misery loves company theory or it's the probably not that as much as just learning from other people's successes and failures, but successes too. I mean, I think that we tend to see failures because they're easier to see and they're talked about and they're on the 6 o'clock news and things like that. But when we can share success stories and others can emulate our successes, I think that's so much more powerful. And so bringing families together like you do, like I do, um, that's when I fell in love with just work in general, was when I realized that, gosh, I have an opportunity to convene great people with other great people and let them learn from each other. Sounds like you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of that yourself.
No, and Ed, I've always respected your reputation and what you've accomplished along the path. It's been fabulous watching you grow, what you've been doing. It's quite a good feeling when you help other people out along the path. Just a quick shout out to, part of my book, Long Live Family Business. That's the working title, and we own the URL, but there's nothing out there yet. It's still too early. But I'm looking to interview family business owners that are involved in 100-year-old or older family owned and family run businesses. And so if anybody in the audience is interested in sharing their stories, I'm taking the academic things I've learned the last 40 years and kind of like bundling it up with real life opportunities and success stories on how they perpetuated the business and maybe some of the sacrifices that they did along the path. And you know, we were not from wealth. This was all bootstrapped. And we used to sit around when I was just early in the family business. We'd sit around and we go, okay, we're a little short on cash. Who's got a car payment due this week? Who's got a house payment due this week or rent payment due? My three siblings and I and my dad, the five of us would say, well, I've got a car payment due. Can I cash my paycheck? And I'm so sure that other family businesses that bootstrapped it have a similar story, or if not exactly the same. That's how you sacrifice as a family team, which is makes you realize when you come on down the road and things are a little bit steadier. It's a really good feeling to know that you can cash your paycheck every week.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to look back at where you were and then look at where you are now and think of that progress that you made and the bumps and the bruises and the challenges along the way.
Exactly.
All right, well, I'll put the call out now, as Jeff just did, and we'll put it in the notes as well. And when we post this on LinkedIn and everywhere else, we'll put a call out to family-owned businesses that are 100+ years old to be part of your research. I can think of a few off the top of my head that I'll reach out directly, and then others who may see this who know somebody. So yeah, if you run or know someone who runs a family-owned business that's been around for 100+ years, first of all, congratulations on that. That's pretty amazing. And second of all, I can speak to the knowledge I have of Jeff that the work he's doing will be wonderful and feature your business in a great way. So yeah, we'll put that out for sure.
Appreciate it, Ed.
All right. So the last couple of questions for you, Jeff. Number one is, you talked about MBA at Pepperdine, undergrad at the Ohio State University. So you've heard the term BHAG, the Big Hairy Audacious Goal.
Sure.
What are some of the big, hairy, audacious goals that you have going forward, either personally, professionally, as an author, as a speaker, all of the above?
I haven't specifically written goals for the authorship, but that's one of my goals is to get that done. But the short-term goal is we're going to double this business in the next 3.5 years. And that's going to be a blast because we've got a great opportunity to build some things out that have never been done before. So we're working on that. And yeah, I've got 33 goals. I write goals every year and I review them and I meditate about them every day. So I would recommend anybody that can calm their mind and think about what they want to get accomplished. Meditation is the way to go. So
I love that. Find a way to really put that and internalize it. Meditation, prayer, writing, whatever you call it.
My Pepperdine MBA thesis for the MBA was to analyze the Samadhi meditation tank business in Los Angeles. That was my thesis for my MBA at Pepperdine.
Wow.
Kind of unusual for a master's program, but that's Pepperdine and Southern California's got a lot of creativity going on. So
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you. Appreciate the work you're doing. We've talked before this podcast. We'll continue to talk after. If there's anything that I can do or we can do to help you get from, 2x and beyond your business, we love to help out. We have a lot of great listeners who are in that space that can help. And I certainly have a desire to saddle up with you as well and find ways that we can work together. So looking forward to that.
Appreciate it, Ed. Thanks, Gun.
Last question I ask all my guests, since the podcast is named From the Hart. My last name is Hart. You've shared a lot of this already in the hour, but let me just finish with this question and then we'll end the day together today. Jeff, what's in your heart?
What's in my heart is that I think that family business is the most powerful, successful type of business entity type out there. And I am, in my heart, want to solve a lot of the problems that make people stay up at night when they're involved in a family business. And if I can chip away at that, I think it'd be very successful. That I feel from the heart that we're getting some pretty cool work done, because these business owning families are the backbone of America. They might be farmers, they might be sales organizations, manufacturers, retail, restaurant, whatever. But if they've got issues that are stopping them from flourishing, their business and having a cohesive family, I want to help them out.